The Honorable Philip Davis, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, has declared October as Investor Education Month in the Bahamas. In the official proclamation, which is on the Commission's website, the proclamation recognizes that financial and investor education can help Bahamians improve their capacity to manage their personal finances, protect themselves from frauds and financial schemes, invest in a sustainable future, and be financially prepared for their retirement years, among other things. This week, October 7th through the 13th, is also World Investor Week, which is a celebration of the International Organization of Securities Commissions, or IOSCO, that shines a light on investor education and investor protection and the work of member securities regulators around the world as they make their efforts to promote investor education and investor protection. We are happy you are joining us this morning for this Frauds and Scams in Today's Financial Landscape webinar. Know the red flags and protect yourself. And this is one of our many activities that we're doing to celebrate World Investor Week this morning. And we are going to get going with our webinar, but just to break the ice, we're going to ask a poll question. So we're going to start off with the first poll question. And while that comes up for you, and that question, of course, is have you or anyone you know ever lost money in a financial scheme, investment fraud, or scam? While that question comes up, I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce our panelists. So to my immediate left is Mr. Dwayne Ward. Mr. Ward is the senior manager of the Enforcement Department. He is counsel and attorney at law with 25 years standing. A former Crown prosecutor, he's been employed with the Securities Commission for the last 18 years. While he's made many presentations in his capacity as the head of enforcement, a lot of his focus now is on investor education, and he's cooperating, or he's participating with the Office of the Executive Director in that special trust we have this year to focus on investment frauds and scams. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ward. Ms. Krista Petty serves as the Deputy Manager of the Supervision Department at the Securities Commission of the Bahamas. She has over 17 years of both financial services and regulatory experience. Mrs. Petty holds an MBA from the H. Wayne Hesinger College of Business and Entrepreneurship, Nova Southeastern University. She's also a member of the International Compliance Association. Ms. Petty, thank you very much for joining us. And finally, at the end of the panel, we have our veteran investigator, Mr. Michael Benson Russell. Mr. Russell has 25 years of experience investigating securities fraud, fraudulent financial schemes, investment pyramid, and Ponzi schemes. So welcome everyone to the panel, and thank you to the audience for joining us. We're going to take a look at our first poll question. By the way, I had actually voted for our first poll question to be, who joined this webinar for the information, and who joined this webinar for the iPhone giveaway? But here we are with the first poll question. Have you or anyone, so we know the question, we had 82%, 82 out of our current 120 attendees indicate, which is 68%, yes, they actually have either been a victim of a financial scheme or fraud, or they know someone personally who has. And right now we have about 30% who said they haven't. The poll just changed, so it's a 70%, 30% split. And I think that question is actually a great question to get us off to our first, to get us started and really to ask the question, so what is a financial scheme?
So first of all, thanks again for having me and for having the rest of the panelists. I would point out that a financial scheme is actually defined in legislation. And so the Financial and Corporate Services Providers Act of 2020 actually outlines what a financial scheme is. And there are quite a number of paragraphs, about 10 of them actually, that outline the definition of a financial scheme. Prior to the Financial and Corporate Services Providers Act of 2020, there was no definition of a financial scheme. It was simply something that, quite frankly, persons got involved in and they would lose their money. And then, simply put, someone convinces somebody else or other persons to invest in a use that word very loosely,
Right.
in a particular product or in something, or someone, whatever the case may be, but usually there'd be a promise of returns and outlandish returns
Okay.
given today's markets, and persons would invariably they would lose their money. Right now, for example, under financial scheme in the act that I just mentioned, you have such things as multi-level marketing or MLM schemes, which are in and of themselves not unlawful. It is just that the way they are structured, certainly in, if you want to call them an orthodox sort of program, the way they are structured, they are intended to provide a product. And as some persons may remember, I'm just giving an example here. Some time ago, Amway was one such multi-level marketing scheme. And essentially what you would have in that sort of a program, you would sell your product, and we had quite a few of them, and you would bring other persons in to help sell the product. And those persons would bring other persons in, and those persons would in turn bring other persons in. And so that is how that business tended to propagate itself. And so the way the Financial Corporate Services Providers Act defines a financial scheme now is it does involve or it covers rather a pyramid scheme or that sort of structure where you have to bring in other people in order for there to be any money made by those at the top of that structure.
So what is the impact of the fact that it's now defined in law? What does that mean?
So it means now, first of all, it's a criminal offense. And so that is extremely important insofar as prior to the current act that I just mentioned, that sort of activity, you would not have been able to go to any legislation, certainly, and address that sort of activity. You can now do so. And there may be other countries that have done this, whereas I believe is one of the first ones to actually criminalize that sort of activity.
It's interesting. So in 2023, according to the results of a Freedom of Information inquiry in the United Kingdom, it was reported that some 26,740 people suffered from investment fraud, and the losses were in the vicinity of £527 million. That's just one country and one statistic. But what kind of I don't know if we have any data like that, of that degree of data available, but what are the common investment frauds and scams that we're seeing in the Bahamas?
I'll hand that over to the investigator.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having us here this morning. Some of the common schemes that we're seeing these days, they revolve around what we refer to as, or what is referred to on the streets as investment programs. We call them their financial schemes. So the majority of what we're seeing investment programs where people are being asked to invest in some product. Usually it's something online like cryptocurrency. We used to have the Forex currency scams. Now it's moved into the crypto region.
So what's criminal about someone asking someone to invest in a cryptocurrency? What's going on there that's...
Cryptocurrency, Mr. Miller, is a very, very, very volatile industry. And even the very best of persons who are involved in that industry, from time to time, they will lose some money. So you have to, first of all, one of the things that we like to say is, when you go to invest in something, you can only invest as much as you're prepared to lose. That's the rule of thumb with any novice investor. Now, why is this criminal? It's criminal because sometimes, and what we're seeing here, when you learn how to trade at these some of these places that teach you how to trade,
Because that's what I remember about the Forex, you know, it's
Right.
not just that they were saying invest in Forex, but they were trying to teach you to
Right.
be able to trade in Forex, be able to, now it's trade in
Right,
cryptocurrency.
you trade, but now when you're in training, the platform that you have access to is designed for you to win. So you now believe that you're doing well. Now, when you go on your own to do this thing,
In the real world.
in the real world, what happens is you lose. And you're so confident, sometimes you may decide to tell a friend or someone, I can do this. And you lose your money and their money. So that's where the criminal side comes in.
So if I can just give a little more context to what Benson is saying. Bearing in mind that financial scheme is defined in the Financial and Corporate Service Providers Act. One of the, or part of the definition of a financial scheme, it does cover where persons engage others in training, and the training cannot be resold. It is, for all intents and purposes, that is the service, as it were. The definition is there, it outlines what it is, but just so that persons understand, this is a part of what is outlined in the Financial and Corporate Service Providers Act.
Yes.
Under the definition of financial scheme. And so multi-level marketing is but one, Ponzi scheme is another. Training, that is yet another. Advanced fee fraud, that's another. And all of these things are outlined under the definition of a financial scheme, which is criminalized in the act.
So, Mr. Russell, Mr. Ward just listed a lot of different types of schemes and frauds, and I think you were pointing out that one of the common ones we're seeing in the Bahamas are those trained to use types of scams.
Right.
What else are we seeing? We're seeing pyramids and Ponzi's and.
Well, we are seeing pyramids especially, and pyramids sort of exploded, I want to use that word, onto in the marketplace during the pandemic, where we have these, again, they appear to be multi-level marketing schemes, these MLMs as we refer to in the office, and where you have to bring someone in. You bring in 5 people and you all pay their money, and then you get your payout and bring 5 more people in.
That's one of the hallmarks of a pyramid scheme. I think. You have to bring people in, you have to recruit people, and that recruitment is an essential part of how they work. You have to bring in X amount of people to get your payout.
Right, we're seeing so many of them, especially since 2020 and the pandemic. We have quite a few of them.
I don't know if we're queued up for polls, but I would love to ask a polling question about how if people would actually report a fraud or a scam if they saw one. So we can see if we can get that poll up, because I'm curious, do you find that people feel free to actually report these things? Or how do you find out about them? People coming in and saying by the droves, boy, that they got, the pineapple got me.
Good name, pineapple. That was one of them. What we are finding is that people are a bit reluctant to come and report that they have fallen victim to these sorts of things. We learn about them by 2 ways. One, by investigative means, and 2, when we have someone come and say, hi, excuse me, I've lost or I've invested some money in this thing and I can't get my money. I can't get my payment. And then we start to ask questions. Then we start understanding that, okay, you brought in 3 people on this, and they brought in 4 people, and oh, you're part of a scheme. You're in a pyramid, and then they would go. So they're very they don't want to. Most people don't want to admit that they fell victim to this sort of thing, and it goes vastly underreported.
So we do want to encourage people to report to us that they've been a victim of a fraud or a scam. The poll results is still kind of tallying, but already we have 15% who's saying no, they ain't ratting no one out. They're very unlikely to report it to us. 44% say they're somewhat likely. I don't know how many of those work for us, but that's great. 24% say they're very likely, and 19% say most definitely, so that's excellent that you would come and report it to us, that's important. Now, Mr. Russ, we're gonna come back to some of the other things we're seeing in the Bahamas, but I don't want to leave Ms. Petty out of this conversation. So let me ask you as the lead-in, could something like a pyramid scheme get registered with the commission? Because I think you're in the supervision department that is involved with gatekeeping and actually vetting people who come into the industry.
Right, so first, before I answer your question, I will first provide a brief summary as to what the role of the commission is. The Securities Commission of the Bahamas is responsible for the licensing, regulating, and supervision of investment funds and securities industry, as well as capital markets of the Bahamas pursuant to the Securities Industry Act and the Investment Funds Act. The commission is also responsible for the licensing and supervision of entities as well as individuals providing financial and corporate services, as well as digital asset business pursuant to the Financial and Corporate Service Providers Act and the Digital Assets and Registered Exchange Act. Should the process for registering as an individual or an entity, if a person is seeking registration in this space, they should first submit an application to the commission.
So what happens if that pyramid scheme sends you an application?
We vet it, we first vet it to determine fitness and propriety based on the submission. The commission seeks to determine whether the applicants are qualified, whether they have the experience, the capacity, and the financial soundness to operate in this space. Should the commission, another review process the commission go through, we also do domestic and international due diligence on individuals who carry out regulatory activities in other jurisdictions. This is to rule out whether there are any adverse information on these individuals. Once that process is completed, if the commission is satisfied that they've meet all the criteria, the applicant is granted an approval. Or some sort of an approval.
If they meet all the criteria, so
If they meet the criteria.
So someone who is writing into you, first of all, with some scheme, you're gonna look at their business plan, I assume as well. When you see a business plan is, everyone gotta bring in someone and they gotta bring some money. That's gonna cue you that this is a fraud. And I'm sure they won't be registered or licensed.
No, they won't be registered or licensed. Again, we look at the capacity, we look at the qualifications that they bring for that entity as well as the experience.
And so those people would actually also have to tell you who they are. If they want to, they have to identify who they are, if they're trying to operate something like a scheme like that. So it probably wouldn't get through the gate. I mean,
No, it would not get through the gate because the supervision department carry out a robust review of any entity or individual wanting to operate in this space. And I just want to piggyback to say that if the commission is satisfied that they meet the criteria, they are then listed on the commission website.
continue, please.
They are then listed on the commission website. And they are approved to operate in this space.
Excellent, excellent. We're gonna come back to that as well, but we have a question that my directors are pointing out to me. This is from Melissa Cujo. Thanks, Melissa, for the question. The question is, what is the penalty for participating in or advertising a Ponzi or pyramid scheme? Because that's a part of the criminalization. If you're promoting these things, you can actually, there's some penalties.
Yes, so that's an excellent question. Again, anyone that is engaged in a financial scheme, it is a criminal offense. I can't stress that enough. Under Section 46 of the Financial and Corporate Services Providers Act, anyone who, and I'm just going off memory here because I don't remember the exact way the provision is worded, but if you promote it, if you in any way draw anybody else or convince anybody else to get into a financial scheme, you can be charged, and you are subject then to a fine and or imprisonment. And so it is not something that you would want to engage in. And so the answer to that question is yes, you can end up paying a fine, or you can end up in jail.
So I'm just gonna do a follow-up question on that. So if I'm the guy in the pyramid scheme who just gave my $200, but I have to bring 5 people in and they have to bring $200 also, any liability on me?
You would be the promoter in that particular scenario.
See,
And unfortunately, I can say that to use that word very loosely, but anyone else that does the same thing you do, in other words, you in turn convince others to join you or to join the scheme, there's a possibility you can be charged as well. And so that is why persons that are approached with this sort of scheme, you need to just avoid it.
I sometimes wonder if, because sometimes people have needs, they have grant coming up, they have school fees coming up. They have some critical things that are coming up that they aren't ready for them, and so these schemes may be very appealing to them.
Sure.
And then maybe some people they kind of know, I know this ain't on the level, but I can get in and get my money before this collapse.
Yes.
So we had a question up, and hopefully we can bring that back up, but it relates to other things we may be seeing, Mr. Russell. And I remember a few years back seeing things like Susu Foundation and stuff like that. And I know they're playing on ASUs. So between you and Mr. Ward, maybe you can tell us if ASUs are criminal and and how they are showing up in the Bahamas in terms of these Susus and public ASUs. I don't know who wants to take that.
Let me just start out by saying ASUs, they are not regulated by the Commission. They are not addressed by the Financial and Corporate Services Providers Act. An ASU, I just very briefly state this because others may have other views on this, but my understanding of an ASU is it is a defined activity. It's essentially a circle. You have a defined number of individuals. They each put in a certain amount. And any of those individuals in that circle, they can only ever get the aggregate of what was put in, no more. And so anything else outside of that, frankly, I don't know that you can call it an ASU. And it may well fall within the definition of a financial scheme if you're not careful.
Someone may call it an ASU because that kind of creates.
Call it, but
So what are you seeing? Have you seen these in the Bahamas? People using the name ASU, but they're not actually operating an ASU?
Well, like Mr. Ward says, ASUs are not regulated. And then the Susus, because that's what we're gonna use, because I remember we had one that was actually named Susu. The Susu, it is formulated along the lines of you have to bring in X amount of persons and you must pay X amount of dollars in order to be included in the circle. There was a very, very large one that came in at the height of the pandemic. And that one paid thousands and thousands of dollars. It was international. It was based out of Atlanta in America. And it got some persons here to join up, and the payout was promising to be very, very large. We had a break-off or a breakaway from that. And we followed that investigation closely. We followed that, and we saw where the first person's in, like usually happens, the first person's in got paid. And that happened for the first 2 rounds. By the time about the 3rd round, people started losing. Right, so yeah, maybe and since then it keeps breaking off into some other person who was probably involved, and they have an idea that, oh, I know how to fix it, so that we can now win, and it's not.
That's interesting.
That's all.
So before, because I have a question for Kristen, before I go to it, are there any other really common things that you're seeing in our marketplace in the Bahamas in terms of investment frauds and scams? Here, because we're going to get to a few other things. I really want to talk a bit about what's happening with pig butchering and some other things in a minute. But before we get to that, anything else that you're seeing?
Well, you called on pig butchering already, so but again, we have the teach you how to invest, frauds. We have the pyramid schemes. We have some investment, some straight up investment schemes where persons are saying, invest in this name entity, and you're gonna get a big payout at a certain date. And those are the
Guaranteed returns.
Guaranteed returns. Those are the ones that we're seeing more commonly here in this jurisdiction at this time.
Okay, that's great. So, if someone would, so Krista, coming back, Mr. Spelly, I'm sorry.
Just
Coming back to you, how we go through this process of vetting, for example, and if we can, I'd like to bring the questions up because there was a question related to this. Someone was asking about one of the trading schemes, sorry. Okay, because there are so many that are flashing up right now. One of the top ones, 1 second. What about text messages offering remote work that end up asking you to pay a fee of some sort? Is that considered part of these financial schemes? So that's related to
That's called an
that.
advance fee. That's an advance fee fraud where you have to pay some money up front in order to get some money on the back end.
And that's criminalized.
That's criminalized, yes, and we're seeing that's now on the increase. We're now seeing more and more along the lines of WhatsApp messages, text messaging, emails, even Facebook ads where you have to pay some money up front in order to be a part of this great program that's being offered. And one more, if I may, there's one more that looks very, very good because it's being offered through churches where individuals go to a particular church and they say, we have a wonderful program to share with your members. You know, to make some money. And they make a presentation at church at prayer meeting night. And they offer these programs and the church people then join up and lose their monies.
That's interesting.
So,
Yeah, so even a church you need to be aware of.
I always like to say, I always like to say, please be very careful before you invest into any program. Do your research, and if the person who is offering this to you, they're not rich.
Well, do your research is interesting, and that brings me right to the question I really want to ask Krista. So the commission does a lot of work to vet people who would participate in the industries we regulate. And what's a part of the research that people can do to try to understand if someone actually is registered with the commission?
well, firstly, any member of the public can go to the commission's website at www.scb.gov.bs. On the main page of our website, there's a link to registered licensees and registrants of the commission. Once you click on that link, it provides you a list of entities' names, their regulated activities, their addresses, and key personnel that includes the CEO and compliance officer.
Excellent, excellent. So I want to bring up a poll question. And the poll question I want to ask is about whether people know where they would actually report an investment fraud or scam to. So I just want to bring up that poll question, and we're going to take a moment to just ask the panel. So someone's approached me, I'm a church or whatever, and I get one of these offers. Someone approaches me and I know this is a fraud or scam, or I've actually lost something in something that I believe is an investment fraud, a pyramid scheme. What do I do?
Well, you would report it to the Securities Commission. We do have, I think Krista may speak to this at some point, but you can go on our website, www.scb, that's Sam Catboy, just so that we're clear.
Securities Commission Bahamas.
There you go, .gov.es. So you can go on our website and you can go to an area on that website, it's under investor,
The best center.
Exactly.
The investor center.
And you can report to the commission any of your concerns. You can also send an email if you don't happen to get onto the website for whatever reason. You can also send an email to info@scb.gov.es. And you can send your concerns there. And I just want to point out too, just before we get to the full question, so a number of questions up there. I don't know if we'll be able to certainly answer those perhaps offline if we don't get to them today.
Thank you for that. Thank you for pointing that out. So there are a lot of very exciting questions in the question pool. We're going to use the last 10 minutes of the webinar to go through as many of those as we can. So there were a few that really were pertinent to what we were discussing that I wanted to just bring into the conversation. But there are some excellent questions in there. We're going to get through what we can at the end of this session. And those that we can't, we'll get back to you with the responses on those as well. Okay. So we know how to report a scam. So I talked about pig butchering earlier. I think there was a Time article recently that reported over from 2020 to 2024 worldwide, over $75 billion has been lost to victims of pig butchering scams and schemes. Can you, and you know, in the Bahamas, if it ain't here yet, it'll be here eventually, right? If it isn't here yet. So what is the pig butchering scam? What is that? And what should we be looking out for?
A pig butchering scam is very simply this. Someone will target an individual and they will, in essence, make conversation with that individual and let me use the regular language. They sweep them up, right? Encourage them into doing things they would normally do, all in an effort to gain their confidence. And once they have gained their confidence, they begin to extract monies. Sometimes they start off small, and I need you to give me some money. This, and it grows.
I understand sometimes they're as simple as you get someone and it's the wrong phone number, but they start bending or the wrong WhatsApp number. They just start bending a conversation.
That is a common rule that is used. You answer your phone and it's someone on the other line. Oh, I want to speak to Joe. There's no Joe here, and then a conversation ensues.
What nowadays WhatsApp message or Facebook message.
Right. That's what I'm trying to
Draw you in.
They draw you in, and then at the end of the day, you would have lost. You would have lost, and they have targets. These salesmen, they have targets. They know what their target is. They know when they meet you. They know exactly. They've watched you. They have targeted you. They know exactly how much to hit you up for. So when they get to their target, they vanish.
And I understand they will stretch it out as long as they can.
As long as necessary for them to achieve their target.
And I think this term pig butchering is something that they actually use. That's a term that the fraudsters perpetrated because they consider the victim to be a pig and they're gonna slice them up.
They fatten
them up and then slice them up, take a piece of bacon, take a piece of ham, take some pork chops off them. They just until there's no, get some chitlins, until there's nothing left.
Right.
That's good.
That's basically what it is. And that scheme is it's an old tried and true thing with the U-turn.
Because a part of the challenge today too, I think, is that with technology, people potentially can know so much about you, and they can, because of their ability to tap into your Facebook pages, your social media sites, and your history, they can learn things that they can use to manipulate you.
Right, and it's very important that you be very careful what you put on social media, especially as it relates to travel. The police will tell you about announcing your travel plans, but the enforcement department here at the commission would warn you about announcing your travel plans for other reasons. Because you're gonna say on your travel plans, I'm going to Spain, so here goes a potential butcher. Oh, I have a pig who's traveling to Spain. So now I know what kind of money that person has, and now I'm going after them for a certain amount of money.
And don't forget too, these scammers, the fraudsters, they are not random so much as they may choose persons randomly. Scamming is a business.
Right.
I mean, people need to appreciate that.
Yes,
It's a business. And so they may play the odds. You may be the one person who they come across out of hundreds whom they've already contacted. And they would simply try whomever they contact. And if you respond, then you may be the one that is drawn in. And so I've received WhatsApp messages from persons unknown. I simply deleted.
Yeah.
That's sort of vigilance you have to.
you have to be vigilant, and you have to be in today's world, and I'll use this to segue back to Krista to ask, what are some of the things that we can do? But before I do that, just to underscore that you have to be skeptical. You can't assume that everything is above the board and everyone has good intentions.
That's right.
That strangers you don't know really have this great investment opportunity for you. You have to be skeptical. So, Krista, maybe you can share some of the other things. You told us about the importance of going to the commission's website to see if the business or the person is registered. That gives you a lot of comfort. They know, you know that we know who those people are, we know what their business is, we've vetted them, we know where they're operating. But what are some of the other things that you can tell people in terms of what they could do to do that research and be prepared, and so that they don't fall victim?
Just as you mentioned, you have to ask questions. Foresters are depending on you to not investigate before you invest.
Yes.
Potential investors must take the time to do their investigation. Avoid sellers who promises high returns with little or no risk.
Investing involves risk.
Investors involved.
Investing involves risk. So if someone's telling you to invest in something and there's no risk, that's not an investment they're asking you to make. They're not asking you to make an investment, right?
Right. You can, potential investors can also go to the commission website. We do provide names of non-registered security businesses who are seeking investors in the Bahamas. So it goes right back to the commission's website. On the main page, there is the Investor Center. The Investor Center is a wealth of information that can be provided to potential investors. You can go on that page and that can provide you with information with respect to non-registered individuals in the forms of investor alerts, news, so on and so forth.
That's great. So we know that we have to do our research. We have to ask questions. We have to understand how a business is operating, what the business model is. And again, if the business model is you got to bring some people in here and they got to bring some money too, that's a red flag. What are some of the other red flags out there that people need to watch out for?
I would say, and there are a number of them, so the two of us can speak to them, but one in particular is that pressure, the high pressure to invest. You would have said it earlier, be vigilant, be skeptical, as you would have mentioned.
Yes.
Any pressure to invest your money into something, that is a red flag. Another red flag would be, as we would have earlier mentioned, the guaranteed return or the outsized market return. Both of those are red flags, These are the sorts of things you need to look out for. If you can't find it, I think I saw a question up there that asked about someone you can't find due diligence on.
Yes.
You can't find due diligence on someone, that chances are is a red flag. And that may be someone you would want to avoid in terms of partnering with them in business or doing anything in terms of a venture with them, business venture. Again, due diligence, that is something that everyone who wants to invest, you need to do your due diligence and do your research basically on anybody.
You would not want to invest your monies with an individual who, when it's time for you to bring your money, they tell you to meet them in the parking lot. By a certain grocery store.
Right.
And
That's a red flag, sure.
That's a red flag. Right? So you would want to be doing business with persons who are somewhat professional. who have some sort of in this business. We all know Tommy from down the street. Tommy was employed last week, but this week he's telling you to invest some wonderful money. No, that's a red flag.
So I'm gonna pause to remind everyone that we are giving away a brand spanking new iPhone 16. Do we have to give this away? We can just- I could use this. We're giving away a brand new iPhone 16 to one of the attendees who's been on the call for the duration of the call, Bahamian resident, not a member of the Securities Commission or our sister financial regulators who are always so excellent in supporting us. Thank you for those of you out there from the Central Bank and the Insurance Commission, the Compliance Commission. But we really want to give this to the non-regulated participants who are joining us today. We're going to go to that in a minute. We have a lot of questions in the bank. And because of that, I think I want to turn to those questions and start going through those questions because we have about 20 minutes left. We're going to come back in a bit to let you know how we're going with who the lucky winner is. We're going to draw this live. So we're going to drop all of the eligible persons into an electronic randomizer, spin the wheel, and see who the lucky person is who's going to take this iPhone today. So before we do that though, let's actually take a look at, I want to put the last poll question up. I think we had one more poll question up. So we talked a bit about the different types of schemes. And I just want to ask people, what's most concerning to them based on what we talked about today. So let's bring the question up. We know what a pyramid scheme is. I don't know if we've clearly differentiated a Ponzi from a pyramid. Do you want to just just take us through that a bit?
There are similarities between a pyramid scheme and a Ponzi scheme. So with a pyramid scheme, let's start with that one. As the name suggests, that is a scheme where you have a number of persons, or maybe one person at the apex or at the top, and it kind of builds itself out. And that's what it looks like after it would have sort of started to get going. And so the one person or the persons, they will bring in two, and they will have those two bring in two each. And then those four that they bring in, they each have to bring in another two under each of them. Right. And as you can see, it starts to kind of build itself out. And so that in essence is a pyramid scheme. And as each person comes in, they have to bring money. And that money, for the most part, goes to primarily the person or persons at the top of the scheme. And so that, for all intents and purposes, that's essentially what a pyramid scheme looks like.
Excellent.
I'm sure you've all gotten involved in a pyramid scheme, multi-level marketing scheme. They tend to be, they kind of go hand in hand.
So how does a Ponzi scheme?
So a Ponzi scheme now, a Ponzi scheme does not necessarily, it might look like a pyramid, but not necessarily. It is more linear. And so you can have a number of persons come into a Ponzi scheme. And in that particular scenario, you may have one person that brings a substantial amount of money into that scheme. Mm-hmm. And that one person can fund the payout to the earlier investors. Right. And so whereas you have in the pyramid scheme persons the money kind of flows upward, with a Ponzi scheme, the money flows one way as well, but you may have a number of persons, and that so long as they can bring in new investors in a Ponzi scheme, they can pay earlier the ones that came in. And so essentially, those are that's the difference between the two.
Okay.
That's
great.
I don't know.
So did you have anything to add to that?
Also, I will point out that we will have outlined the difference in two notices that we posted, one in 2017 and another in 2020. We reposted it.
They're available on the Commission's website, Investor Center, and you go into the warnings and notices.
I think it's number 11 of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. And so you can go there by all means, inform yourself as to what it looks like. But of course, if like me and would have been involved a long time ago, the multi-level marketing scheme, you pretty much get a good idea as to what that looks like. Ponzi scheme, on the other hand, you mentioned the name earlier, Pineapple, that would have been more of a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
Where you had persons that were being paid out, later persons were being used to pay up the earlier ones.
Excellent. So just before we get to the results of the poll, I really want to talk just for a quick second about fake websites and remind everyone that you have to be very meticulous and careful about putting in that URL, that www dot whatever. A simple letter can mean that you're on the wrong website. If you click a link, you have to be really careful that the link you're clicking takes you to the website of the person that you're trying to find. Again, just a simple letter difference at the end of the name, and they will clone the website. You think you're dealing with a legitimate person, and the next thing you know, you're sending money elsewhere. So interestingly, it seems like a lot of the audience knows that. Most people are concerned, 40% of the poll respondents, with fake websites. The next largest group is Ponzi, crypto scams, 24%, Ponzi schemes, and then pyramids and pig butchering, bringing up the rear. So with that now, as we have 15 minutes left, we're gonna end that poll and open up to the Q&As that are in, and just kind of go through them, and hopefully the team here can address the questions. If we can't, we'll get back to you, certainly. So let me just get a visual on how we're looking. We okay with the drawing soon? We're coming along? Okay. So the first question that I see up here from Theo Dawkins, and I'm reading this call. So how can you deal with an individual or group of individuals who want to invest in your business, but they show little or no credentials? So I think one of you started talking about yes. Okay. Do you want to repeat that very quickly?
Well, due diligence, I think they can, it's clear, that's on you, yeah.
Yeah.
Show the fund credentials, yeah. I'm thinking due diligence would be what you would want for anyone that wants to become a part of your business, or anyone that either they're seeking to invest with you and they have nothing to show in terms of, I know. KYC is something you want to do on anyone that wants to give you money. You don't know where the money's coming from.
So yes, I think it's an interesting question because it may not be that the people who want to invest in you are fraudsters, but they may be money launderers, which is a different conversation about making sure that you understand the source of funds that are coming into your business or investment. Again, that's when the commission and potentially our friends at the central bank get involved as well. You really want to make sure that you know who those people are, and that you have confidence that the funds are coming from a reputable source. So that's that question. I hope we answered your question, Theo. So another question up from Shanae Roll, and I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. I'm not sure if this was mentioned prior in the live meeting, but my question is, what are all the different types? Well, we addressed many of the different types of financial schemes.
So there are outlining Financial Public Service Providers Act. If you go to the definition section, financial scheme, there are about 10 different paragraphs there. They basically outline everything. So this is what it is. Yes. And then there's a catch-all at the end where the commission can, if there's anything that has not been captured, the commission can have it designated as a part of that definition of financial scheme. So
okay,
it's in the act.
So can I just get those questions again?
Sorry, I can't go through all of them because I don't remember all of them.
That's okay.
All of me.
So I asked one, and I'll see if anyone wants to take this one. How do you track? This is from John Joseph or Jean Joseph. How do you track, regulate, or punish persons who are out of the country?
So the commission has relationships with regulators worldwide. We are a part of an organization known as IROSCO, the International Organization of Securities Commissions, and we do share information with other countries and likewise, vice versa. And so where we have any matters that take us out of country, more likely than not, that will entail our getting in contact with the country where that particular person or that entity happens to be. And so I hope
I hope makes sense as well. So another question up from Renee Vincent. Does the intention or the knowledge of the participant impact their liability? As in whether the person knowingly participates or advertises in a scheme by encouraging others to join? Is ignorance a defense in the law?
Ignorance of the law is no excuse, unfortunately. So the circumstances, and I'm just answering this, I'm not quite, I hope this answers the question, because, but at the end of the day, the circumstances of each case will dictate what happens in that particular matter. What we do know is anyone that becomes involved in a financial scheme, depending on your role in that particular program or scheme, that will determine how you will be dealt with. Section 46, I think it's second 46B, if I'm not mistaken, that outlines what the criteria is. So you can promote, or if, and I don't remember what all the other terms are in that particular part of the provision. But yes, and so depending on where you fall in that scheme, are you a promoter? Are you someone that has perhaps been drawn in and then you in turn drew somebody else in? That provision captures anyone that is involved in the scheme in those respects.
Excellent. Excellent. There's an interesting question up here. I was invited to join a travel club, not based here in the Bahamas. Am I committing an offense if I join it, as it does require me to invite other persons to join?
Insofar as it is, depends on how it's structured, is how I would answer that. I would say travel clubs, first of all, is something with travel. So let's be clear with that. Without more information on how that particular program is structured, that's a little difficult to answer that. Because persons can pose something to you in the name of this is what it is, and if you really dig into it, it turns out to be something else. And so
it could be, you really need to look at exactly how it's
really look at
structured.
how that is structured and what is happening there in order to.
Is there a real product in play here, or is this just bring more people into?
Bring more people,
the
exactly.
operation
Because
side
bringing
of
persons in, that falls within the definition of a financial scheme, right? So
But
if that is all that's happening, I don't know how much traveling is going on with this travel club.
Right.
Just there is travel, actual travel. And so, but that is something we'd be careful about. By the same token, just let's be clear, travel clubs is nothing wrong with travel club.
That's great. So we have another question in, and that is from an anonymous attendee. There are modern ASUs now where contracts are signed between an ASU holder and participants. Does the signed contract make it legal?
So it's a contract, and so again, without more, if you have a contract with these persons of a defined group, as we know ASUs to be, a defined number of persons, I don't know that there's anything necessarily wrong with that sort of an arrangement. I am aware that you do have ASU groups.
We're getting very sophisticated.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
That's for sure, and for good reason. And so I don't know that there's anything wrong with that. Again, if it's a contract and it was legally created, parties that are all of the same mind, and basically they agree to be bound by the contract, everyone signed it. You had a meeting of the minds, as they would say in legal terminology. At the end of the day, you shouldn't have an issue. But again, just to be clear, ASUs do not fall within the Financial Services Rights Act. The Commission doesn't regulate ASUs. The ASU as it's traditionally known. And so, just to be clear on that.
That's excellent. So we're just about ready to go with the picker, but before we do, I see a question from Chandra Camp, which I think has been answered more or less. And that relates to his network marketing opportunities considered fraud as well. And that kind of falls under what we're talking about in terms of it really could be a multi-level marketing scheme. Is that correct? In terms of it could be all about the structure of it is that you have to bring people in to make more money, as well as it might be something where there's actual business and actual product that may not fall into that definition.
Right.
And we have, I don't know if we could, we have a question from Jandel Curry. What legal precedents exist for enforcing penalties against Ponzi scheme operators? That's a very technical and specific question. Does anyone want to take that?
I'm sure what legal precedents exist. I don't know if Janadel I don't know if the question concerns whether anything has happened under the Financial Corporate Service Providers Act to date. We can't speak to any matters that are ongoing, and so that's not something that we can speak to.
That's okay, that's great. So we have 5 minutes left. I see another question. Does the commission, and I'm gonna, so what's going on behind the scenes is that our technical directors are both managing the wheel and the questions. And so that's why we're having a bit of a back and forth. But I just want to look at the question from anonymous attendee. Does the commission have any jurisdiction over the proliferation of fraud happening on local banks' credit and debit cards? We and others have been hit multiple times this year, at least 4 times, having to change our cards every time. The biggest hit took multiple thousands off our account, and it took months for it to be reimbursed. Can you advise? Well, that's a deep one. I feel like we should add some of our sister regulators, the central bank, on this call.
Right.
Twitter, do you wanna shed any light on that, or do you want to? So the commission, as Ms. Betty indicated, we regulate securities, investment funds, the capital markets, financial and corporate service providers, and that would really be non-bank financial and corporate service providers, and digital assets and exchanges, digital asset businesses, and technically carbon credits trading as well. And that's to say that the operations of credit card merchants don't really fall under the purview of the Securities Commission of the Bahamas. It's an excellent question, and I do know, because I also have friends who've been a victim of some of these frauds and scams, and I also know that they often lament how long it takes for the bank to reimburse them, but that's a little bit out of the Securities Commission's remit. So I don't think we can shed any additional light on that. Is there anything that the lawyer of 25 years wants to add to that, or?
Report to the central bank. First of all, make sure that your bank knows.
Yes.
I imagine from the question, it looks as if the bank is aware. But make sure that you launch your complaint to the bank. And outside of that, again, the central bank is the regulator for banks and trust companies.
Excellent. So we're gonna just do some final thoughts as we get ready for the drawing, because we have about 3 minutes left. We're gonna try to stay on time. And I'll probably start at the far end and ask Mr. Russell if he has any final thoughts he wants to share, any final reminders about red flags or anything.
Well, just to wrap up, just want to encourage persons out there to stay on your guard, be aware at all times. If it seems too good to be true, but it usually is. There's nothing comes easy in life. So be very, very careful.
Yeah, that's great. Miss.
Yeah, we would also want to remind the public, if anybody have been a victim of financial crime, or if they know of an entity or an individual who is carrying out regulated activities and are not registered or licensed, please submit a complaint to the commission. As Mr. Ward would have alluded earlier, you can you can go to the commission website on the main page for the Investor Center. You can also send us an email at info@scb.gov.bs, and you can also call the commission at 397-4100 and provide the commission with as much information as you possibly can on the you got in the matter.
That's excellent. And Mr. Ward, do you have any final comments you want to share with us?
I would say to anybody out there, be vigilant. Understand that you have the money in your hands. Scammers are trying to get it out of your hands. There is no reason for you to let it go. None whatsoever. And so there's no need for you to rush into something, especially if you don't understand something you're rushing into, because oftentimes you have persons that would pitch something to you, and if you don't fully understand it, that too is a red flag. If you don't understand the investment that they're pitching to you. And so persons, you are your own guide when it comes to this sort of thing. The best means of persons not getting to you is for you to not allow them to get to you in the first place.
Yeah, that's great, that's great. So that's wonderful. We have about 30 seconds left. How are we looking on the drawing? Can someone give me a verbal? We are ready to go with the drawing. So as we're pulling up that drawing, we'll just pull up the wheel. I want to remind everyone to, first of all, I want to thank everyone for joining us. We had, I think, over 200 persons attending this webinar today. Want to remind you to visit us at SCB, Securities Commission Bahamas, scb.gov.bs. Please follow us on social media. We have sites, we have Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn sites as well, where we post information. We're happy you've joined us. We have a lot of other activities planned for World Investor Week, which are also on our website. Later today, Mr. Russell is going to be on the Mo and Drew show at 1:30 along with Sam Campbell. We have another webinar on Thursday, Future of Money, and we are going to have external panelists on that. It's going to be an excellent webinar. Please join us for that. You can register from our website as well. And we have other activities that are listed on our website tomorrow. We're also going to be on the Z Live show at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So with that, we're going to share the wheel, and we're going to do our drawing for the lucky winner of my of this iPhone 16. Nice having you for a minute. So just pulling that up. Okay, and I think we can the audience see the wheel?
Yes.
Yes, they can? Okay, great. All right, so let's see who our lucky winner is. And the winner is, drum roll please. We have a winner, Miss, I don't know if it's Mr. I assume it's, anyway, Valerie DeRosen. So congratulations, Valerie DeRosen. We really appreciate everyone joining us. We have your email address, so we'll send out to you the details of how to pick up your iPhone 16. Thanks everyone for joining us. We really value you joining us today. We hope you learned something about frauds and scams and that you're better able to protect yourself. Have a great day.